Hello, everybody. Welcome. Glad you clicked on this video. Writer's Corner with author Zafke, Colin Zafke. Welcome to this first video where I want to talk about one of my writing inspirations, one of my favorite writers, and I would have to say, as far as science fiction, my favorite, among many others, of course, of different genres, but Michael Crichton, Kurt Vonnegut, Madeleine L'Engle. Who else could I mention? There's so many. Isaac Asimov, of course. So this gentleman right here, the great and late Ray Bradbury. One of the quotes that he said that always sparked my imagination is how Ray Bradbury said, "I never tried to predict the future. I tried to prevent it." Maybe you, dear writers and also readers, maybe you've read works by Ray Bradbury. Maybe you were forced to when you were in middle school or high school. And I hope it wasn't that. I hope you don't see Ray Bradbury as something that, oh, yeah, we had to read him in high school or middle school. Okay. If you can go back and revisit his stories, you'll see what a genius he was in the literary world. Some of his most well-known works, of course, when you see Ray Bradbury, one of the most famous is Fahrenheit 451. Very, very famous dystopian novel, but also became a movie. Some of the lesser known, perhaps, stories of his, and the one in particular I want to talk about today is this one right here. There Will Come Soft Rains. Maybe you've read Sound of Thunder over here. Sound of Thunder was one of the first short stories that I read that introduced me to Ray Bradbury and just absolutely turned my world upside down. The time travel disaster, and then coming back to a dystopian world after inadvertently 65 million years in the past. A very cocky time traveler who wanted to go back and hunt a T-Rex, Eccles, steps on a butterfly because he stepped off the path. And they go back to the future and everything has changed. A dictator won the election, and, well, read the story. We'll look into it in the future. But I want to talk about, in the case of There Will Come Soft Rains. Have you read that short story? It's not one you see very often. You might see it in a school literature book. But it's also a dystopian story set, well, not so much in the future anymore. We're here now, the date that he put in that story. I don't want to give you all the details because I want you to read it. But it's a dystopian story, as you can see in the pictures over here, of a lone house that's still standing after a nuclear bomb goes off in the city, decimates everything. And all of the houses had robotics in them. Everything is controlled by robots and computers. The people are all gone. And the only thing left standing is this one house. And on the inside, obviously the AI, the computer, everything is ignorant of the fact that all of the people are dead. And yet The house keeps going through its automated routine day after day, making food. The garage door opens, exposing a car. The stove turns on and makes pancakes and eggs and all the lot. And there's a very interesting part that he puts in there. You have to read Ray Bradbury to understand that writers have what we call not just their writing style, but their voice. When you read Ray Bradbury's works, you quickly understand what his voice is through the way that he writes. And Ray Bradbury uses lots of repetition of different words, different expressions. He's very colorful, very vivid in the way that he paints a picture of what's happening in this story. Like in the Sound of Thunder, when they come out of the time machine and it says that the jungle was wide and the jungle was vast and the jungle was the whole world forever and ever. Trying to paint this picture of just immensity, right? And he does that in many of his stories. He uses that same kind of repetition of words like that. These short 2-word sentences, right, all together. So in this one, he talks about how he makes a comparison between what all these different automated systems are doing in the house, and he likens it to people worshiping, like priests going through these motions, worshiping when the gods long since left. And he says the mindless rituals continue on, and yet the gods have long since abandoned them. That's what the case is here. And it gives you this feeling as you read the story of just this kind of icky feeling in the pit of your stomach. You see this house going through a normal routine without knowing that nobody's there. The people are all dead. Their silhouettes burned into one side of the house from the thermonuclear blast. And yet the house ignorantly, blissfully continues on, making food, cleaning up the house, reading bedtime stories to children that are not there. And it's very interesting because decades before the situations that we have today with AI and other media programs that people can confuse reality with. People can blur those lines of what's real and what's not, what is human and what is digital. Ray Bradbury already talked about these things. You know, in this story, I think he wrote back in the 70s. And so you get this feeling that really sadness. You get a feeling of sadness. You get a feeling of kind of tragedy. Not just tragedy, but also feeling sorry for this house. Even though the house isn't alive, the robots aren't alive. It's just going through a pre-programmed system every single day. But you feel bad for it. You're rooting for it. You want the house to go on and maybe have people come back and rescue it. But it doesn't happen. One of the most impacting scenes in this book, There Will Come Soft Rains. And by the way, There Will Come Soft Rains is actually a poem written by Sarah Teasdale, which is quoted at the end of the story about humanity would be long gone and the earth would barely notice that we were gone, that we had destroyed ourselves. Everything will continue on, nature will continue on, and pay absolutely no attention to humans being wiped out. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, one of the most impactful scenes in this story is when the family dog comes home, comes out, this straggly dog, emaciated, starving to death, comes in from the wasteland, comes in the house. Of course, the house recognizes the dog, right? And when the people are usually there, what happens is if they're not around, then the kitchen locks itself, which unleashes a chain of events. So the dog comes in, and here's this kitchen going crazy, making all this food, pancakes and eggs and hash browns and sausages and all this stuff, bread, toasted bread. And the dog's on the other side of the door, clawing at it, trying to get in. And the dog's just going crazy. But the house was programmed not to let the dog in there. So this program is making all this food, and the dog is outside just going crazy, starts frothing at the mouth, and it starts running in circles until it just falls over and it's dead. That scene was always so impactful in my mind. I could see this scene, the dog just going crazy, smelling this food, and it can't get at it. Then all the little robots come out, and they take the body, and they get rid of it, and the body is thrown down a chute into the furnace in the basement. Well, what happens is eventually is that there's a tree outside, falls on the house in the kitchen area, spilling solvents, catches on fire, and the house starts to burn. And you see this computer system frantic to try to put out the fire and save itself. And it's almost like the house is alive. It's fighting. It's trying to stay alive. But it almost does it. It almost gets the fire put out. But then the chemicals and the water runs out because there's no more electricity. There's no more water. Like this house is running on a battery or something like that. But there's nothing to pump the water to the house. So the water runs out. And the house ends up catching on fire, completely collapses, and all that's left is one wall. There's one wall standing and a screen on the wall repeating the date over and over and over and over again. And that's how the story ends. Brilliant writing. Brilliant use of, the command of the English language that Ray Bradbury had. And he didn't go to college. That's the most amazing part. This man was simply a gifted genius when it came to writing. But his stories are dark. His stories are dystopian because, as he said, he was never trying to predict the future. He was trying to prevent it. And he was right, because many of the things that Ray Bradbury wrote about have come true and are coming true. These men were visionaries, these writers. I want to encourage all of you to discover Ray Bradbury. Read his books, like A Sound of Thunder, or There Will Come Soft Rains, Fahrenheit 451, The Martians. Other works that are maybe not as well known, like The Foghorn. Ooh, The Foghorn. Great suspense, thriller, horror. Great story. Lighthouse. Just dark and misty and mysterious. And the next one, we'll talk about another writer that was very influential to me, which was Madeleine L'Engle. And we're going to talk specifically about A Wrinkle in Time. Until then, keep writing and keep reading. And I'll see you in the next Writer's Corner. Zafke signing off here.